Akatsuki no Yona?
Akatsuki, huh? Pretty sure that's a Polish man.
Yeah, Akatsuki in the gang. It's about a Polish man who just makes Polish dogs all day long. And he doesn't take no Yona for an answer.
What?
He says yes, Yona, or no. Anywho, it translates to.
What does that mean?
No Yona is like at the end of the title, so I figured he didn't take Yona. Anywho, it literally means Yona of the Dawn. Although the English title is Yona, the girl standing in the blush of dawn. I'm sorry. Anywho, so it starts off, and everyone's name's pretty easy. It has like 2 O's in it at a minimum. So there's the girl. She doesn't have 2 O's. Her name's Yona, and she's a princess. And she has some red hair, and it just doesn't lay flat, and she like gets upset about it not laying flat, and she has jewels. And there's this good-looking feller that protects her, but I don't know, they're just always messing with each other. Anywho, it's going to be her 16th birthday. You know, the big 1-6, sweet 16. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying.
Yeah. And her cousin, Yu-Su, is coming over to town, and she has liked him ever since she was young. And Jun-il is her father, and he's the king. And they're just going to have a big old party. And so her cousin shows up, and she's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm doing all right, madam." And he flings his hair, and it just sparkles because he's just amazing, you know.
Oh, I know.
Anywho, she gets the feeling like something's a little amiss, like someone's trying to follow her and maybe kill her, and she gets so worried sometimes, and she goes to her daddy and is like, "Daddy, will you let me marry Sunhoo?" And he says no, and she's like, "But Daddy, I love him." And he's like, "Look, I give you a ton of stuff. You don't have to do anything, so just do this one thing for me, and don't marry your cousin, all right? Just do this one thing for me." And she eventually comes to the realization that she can't, and she wants to marry him. So she goes in the middle of the night to go tell her dad she wants to marry Suhu, or whatever his name was. And what do you know? She walks in, funny story, and Suhu, he's got this sword, and he stabs her father and kills him. And so he's just like on the floor bleeding to death, and she goes up, is like, "Suhu, get a doctor. I mean, you know, we gotta save this guy's life." And Suhu's like, "Actually, I meant to kill him, and so I'm not gonna get a doctor, and I'm gonna kill you." And she's like, "What?" And tears, my word, the buckets of tears are just coming down, and she's out in the courtyard. It's just raining, and at the last second, her bodyguard man shows up, and he's like, "No." And that's the first episode.
That may be the greatest review I've ever heard in my life.
It was so good, I had to watch the second episode. Second episode. She's in the courtyard, about to be killed. And then bodyguard guy shows up and says, "What's going on, Suhu? Where's the king?" And he's like, "I killed the king." And he's like, Don't mess with me, man." And he's like, "I'm not messing with you, man." And he's like, "Don't mess with me, man." And then he finally believes that, yeah, he did kill the king. And he's like, "Why?" And he said, "Because I want to be king." And yeah, it's good reason, I think. Anywho, so he's just fighting away, and yeah, they're just fighting, and they're running through town, and then they get out of town, and they're in the hills, and they're running away, and Suhu, he's like, "Hey, get them," but they didn't get them, and then it kind of zooms forward, and she is leading a band of fighter peoples, and she's got a bow, and they're just they're just fighting away, and she needs to, I don't know, survive and maybe regain the throne or something. I didn't quite understand what happened at the end there. So yeah, that was episode 2. So what did you two think of, shoot, what was that called? Akatsuki no Yona.
That was an excellent description of the series.
Yeah, I want you to just go through every episode and then account for each one.
Daddy, I want to marry my cousin. Like, but maybe if you didn't. Daddy! Say, all right, I guess you could. Oh, I'm dead! Oh, it was hilarious. And she's like, hey, you need to get a doctor. And he's like, oh, I stabbed him because I want him to die so I can be king. Did you not figure that out? And I guess she didn't. She's not very bright, huh?
Love blinds.
You should watch that whole thing and seriously just make a little video diary about each episode.
I am tempted to, I don't know, just do a little
bridge.
synopsis. A bridge series, is that what they're called? Yeah.
I would just listen to the audio review of each episode, like the recap, the synopsis.
And she was like, Daddy, and then he was dead, and that's the end of that episode. All right, next one.
I give you everything. I do a lot of things. Can you just do this one thing and not marry your cousin? No.
Yeah, listen.
But, I mean, in her defense, she had unruly red hair, and that was keeping her down.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like it's meant for girls.
What?
Well, it was.
No. There was fighting. They were fighting at the end there.
At the end there.
Yeah. So clearly it's for boys. Next one. Hitsugi no Chaika.
Chaika.
Hitsugi no Chaika. The Coffin Princess. That's ominous, huh?
Is she
Yeah.
coughing?
Huh?
She have a cold?
No, she isn't.
Got the sniffles?
No, she's not coughing.
Oh, what a misleading title.
Yeah, I guess it kind of is. So it starts off, there's like a king guy, and there's a war, and they're fighting, and a lot of people are dying.
Well, hold on.
And
What are they fighting for?
they don't say.
Oh, well, that's disappointing.
So there's war, they're fighting, and he says, Advisor, come here. Get the situation prepared immediately. And then the guy's like, all right. And then they're like, and then the war was over.
Well, hold on. Go back. What did the advisor do?
They don't say.
Oh, well, that's disappointing.
Yeah, it's a mystery that they're gonna solve.
Oh, that's the point. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a flashback, and yeah, this is gonna be a little taste, give you a little taste, get you hooked on the show, and then you keep watching because you're like, I wonder what's going on here.
Well, I don't really wonder that hard. I just am a little curious.
So his daughter, she has like white hair and dresses like kind of like a goth girl that wears all white, and then it just pops over. They're in the woods, and this brother and sister are fighting some guards, and she's got this massive sniper rifle, but she's got to make little incantations before she can shoot it. And there's this other woman who's got a smaller rifle, and she can make shorter incantations, and she starts shooting at her. And at this point, I'm like, what's going on? Like, wasn't there a war? Why are we in the woods? And so they're fighting, and the other people are fighting, and then they all show up, and she's like, all right, you kids, you're good at fighting. I'm one of the however many people that defeated the crazy king, and we all took a piece of him, and I took his heart. Literally took his heart. And has it in a jar at her house. And the daughter is going around trying to collect the pieces of her dad. And I think she's already like collected his hand and his foot and some like pieces of him. And they're worried because they think that if you collect them, you'll get a lot of magical power or something. They aren't sure. Yeah, but she just wants her dad's pieces of like his skulls and such. Anywho, she's like, hey, come back to my vineyard. And then they're back at the vineyard, and they're just having a good time. And she's like, how about this? You should just stay here with the evening, take a rest. Next morning, why don't you say we have another fight? And, you beat me, I'll give you his heart. And she's like, all right. And so they go to bed, and there's the girl and her two kind of servant types, and they're kind of fighter types, brother and sister. And the one sister, she shoves her bed over to his bed and is like, hey, maybe we should sleep near each other. And it's like, oh, sister, don't be crazy. And then this cat walks in, and it turns into a girl, and she's like, hey, the brother character, you should make a pact with me, and we could be, get a good, strong weapon. And he's like, oh, not now, I gotta fight tomorrow. And then she leaves, and I was like, oh, what? where did Cat Girl come from? What's going on? And then the next morning, they're like about to fight, and then that ends. And they go over to a new group of people, and this one guy has just been killed. And then some other people are walking up to him, and this one girl's crying. And then she starts turning into the white-haired girl from, like, the Crazy King's daughter. She starts turning into him, but then they stop it. And they're all like, oh, what's going on here? And they go to an academy, and some guy appears out of nowhere and says to her, like, hey, you were turning into his daughter.
What?
You should go collect the pieces of him. And then he disappears. End of episode.
Huh. That was the first episode?
I was sitting there like, oh, I must have skipped something because that didn't make sense. I must have skipped the part where they explained what was going on and who these 30 characters were and what's going on. I must have skipped that part. No, that was just someone said, hey, let's have an episode like that. And someone else said, yeah, that sounds good.
I think more shows need a cat walking in the room, transforming into a girl, asking if they want to form an alliance, and then leaving.
Yeah.
Well, the cat only left because he said, no, I have a fight tomorrow.
Yeah. But, I mean, it sounded like he knew who she was.
You again. No, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Scamp, you get out.
So, that didn't make Jack's worth of sense.
I feel like I'm spoiling something here, but I don't think you watched the first episode because I watched the first episode of this show and it didn't sound like that.
Oh, why don't you... Well, you know what? Maybe I didn't watch the first episode. You know what probably was? Another one of those, like, they put a little asterisk and it was actually the second season. Okay, that would make... No, it still wouldn't make sense. No, because they were introducing... Anywho, Jacko, why don't you tell me what the first episode was?
The first episode, as I remember it, they're walking in the forest, and the fighter guy got attacked by some kind of werewolf, and then the white-haired girl pulled out her sniper rifle and shot it, and then they went to town and met his sister, and then they robbed a mansion.
Okay, well, who was the white-haired girl? Why was she there?
You know, I don't remember. It's a pretty poor show, so...
Okay, well, between that and what I'm going to just assume was the first episode of the second season, they just brought up some stuff. Like her appearing and her dad, and she needs to get his parts of his body. So they must have been doing that in the first season, right? Getting her dear old dad? Getting the old gang back together, you know?
I don't remember any of that, but I don't know.
If I ever lose all my limbs and become quadruped, I would call it getting the gang back together. if I ever wanted to assemble all my limbs again.
Yeah. You could do that.
Getting the old gang back together.
Yeah, it's funny. All right, next anime. Oh, golly, it's just a lot of gems in this bunch. And I just want to say, I was picking these at random, so don't be thinking like, oh, he went through and picked the bad ones. No, this is just anime.
Yeah, this is a really good cross section of what is popular nowadays. Except for that last red hair princess one. I think I've heard of all these.
All right, we got Sora no Method, also known as Celestial Method. Starts out, there is a girl, and she's going back to a town she hasn't been to in a while. And she goes through this tunnel, and it just reminded me of... Have you seen Spirited Away?
Yeah.
Doesn't it start off with the parents are taking the girl to some, like, remote village, and they go through a little tunnel on their way over there, and I don't know, I had this flashback moment to something like that. Anyway, that's beside the point. When she was in elementary school, or maybe she's in elementary, I was a little confused. This is what I'm assuming. She was in elementary school when she lived there, then she moved to Tokyo with her parents. Then at some point her mom died, and now she and her father are moving back. I think she's in middle school, and she doesn't really remember the town. So there's a town, it's by a lake, and there's a spaceship over it. And so tourists come to see the spaceship. And so she's there, and she's unpacking, and her dad's like, oh, I gotta go to work. And she's like, Dad, don't go to work. But he goes. And, yeah, so she's unpacking, and there's this girl who's got blue hair and is kind of oddly dressed, and she's just sitting there. And then eventually she looks over and is like, who are you? And she's like, you don't remember? We know each other. And they sit down, and she's like, okay, explain to me, who are you? And she says, this is my name. And she's like, what are you doing here? I wanted to see you again. And then she says, all right, I'm going to get a drink of water, and leaves. And I'm like, what? You didn't want to ask, like, one more question? You just up and left? That doesn't make any sense.
The
Why
main
would you
girl
do
or
that?
the alien girl?
The main girl just gets up and is like, all right, well, I'm going to go get a glass of water. And leaves.
Okay.
And then she doesn't get a glass of water. She just starts wandering around town. And there's this one girl who's kind of snotty, and she has some headphones. And she walks up to her and is like, why did you come back? And then she just leaves. And the one girl's like, oh, that's weird. They go over, there's some boy, and he goes up to some girl. She's got this, like, monster-y looking thing that she's putting outside the store to get people to come in. And he's like, you gotta turn it. And she won't turn it. And he's like, I'll just help you. And then that was the end of that, I guess. And then they went to another girl, and she had a big bag of stuff, and she was running towards the last bus, and the bus didn't stop. It kept going. And then we went back to the main character. She shows back up at her house after being gone for a while. And she walks in, and the blue-haired girl's gone through a lot of her stuff. And she has this picture of her dead mother, and it's been cracked. And the girl gets really mad and is like, I want you to leave, and I don't want to ever see you again. And the blue-haired girl leaves. And then the dad comes back, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry about that. The frame got cracked. So I went out and bought a new one. She's like, oh no, I was so mean to blue-haired girl. And she goes around running and looking for her, and she remembers when she was a little kid, there was an abandoned observatory with, like, this massive telescope in it that was looking at the spaceship. And it's just abandoned. And she goes up there, and this girl's like, yeah, I knew you'd come back because you promised me when you were younger that we'd see each other. And she's like, all right. End of first episode.
Doesn't sound like a whole lot was going on.
Not a whole lot went on. There are a lot of girls. There's only one guy. I was surprised he wasn't the main character, but yeah. So what'd you think?
I think I'll steer clear of that one as well.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. Didn't it have some charm?
He had a spaceship. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a beautiful spaceship. No one seemed to mention it was up in the clouds, but
Yeah,
it's
if
pretty
they
good.
have tourists that come to the town just for the spaceship, why is the observatory with the telescope pointing straight at it abandoned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I also wondered, why didn't they take this... And when I say it's a massive telescope, I mean like a telescope that's 20 feet long. Massive. I don't know, it's just abandoned. And it's in pretty good repair, even though like the sky's open a little bit so that it can start snowing at the right dramatic moments.
Maybe you should watch episode 2.
Are you going to watch episode 2?
No, God, no.
Never.
Got better things to do with my time than watch episode 2 of some show. Now get me my smokes.
Yeah,
That's
you go.
what you sound like, Laven. That's what you sound like. Go. All right. One more to go. We almost done with this god-awful thing that people call anime. All right. It's called Trinity 7. You heard of it? I'm guessing no.
I don't think I have.
I'm going to start off. Main character, he's asleep. And there's some girl, and she's like running, and she's like, "Don't forget me." And he's running in his dream towards her. He's like, "No, I won't forget you." And he reaches out his arm, and then boom, he wakes up, and his hand is accidentally on that girl's breasts. And I was like, it's been 5 seconds. Oh, come on, man. This cannot be happening. No. This doesn't make... No one wakes up that way. And then she's like, "Brother, or what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you've gotten bigger." And his hand's still, and she's like, "Ah," and the camera zooms up. And then they're eating breakfast, and she's pouty, and he's like, "What's the matter?" And she's like, you should know. And then...
Wait, hold on. Back up just a little bit. Where were they when they woke up? Were they in the brother's bed? Were they in the sister's bed?
Well, the brother was in his bed, and the sister was walking up to, like, wake him up or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Was it time for school? Like, is it normal times?
It's just normal time.
It's normal times grabbing your sister's breast.
Yeah.
In Japan land, yeah, it is.
I will say, though, one thing that I was surprised made me happy. He like went out of his way to mention, "Oh, this is actually my cousin, and we've been friends for a long time." And I was like, "Oh, thank goodness." A couple of years ago, I would have been like, "Cousins, this is so gross." But now I'm like, "Oh, at least they're not siblings." Oh, thank goodness.
That's the whole plan. They're trying to get you... It's a master conspiracy. They're trying to get you dumbed down so they can raise it back up to cousin level, and you still think it's okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was the intro. So they're going off to school, and, I don't know, they're at school, and he goes up on top of the school, and he's the only one up there, and then she comes up to him, and it's like, "Hey, how you doing? Do you like me?" And she's, like, getting on him and such, and he's looking at her and like, "Wait a second, are you the real... whatever your name, my cousin?" And she's like, "What? Well, of course I am." And he's like, "What's my favorite color?" "It's red." "What's my favorite food?" And she's like, "Rice." "And where do I hide all my porn?" It's like, "Under your bed." "Come on, don't you think it's really me?" And then he thinks back, and he's like, "Wait a second. Why is the sun black and covered in black goo?" And she's like, "What are you talking about? The sun's always been black and covered in black goo." And he's like, "Then why, when I showed that little picture you drew earlier from when we were kids, the sun was red in your drawing?" And she's like, "Oh no, you found me out." And then this girl with large breasts is up on top of the school and shoots down. And she's like, "I'm not going to let you get away with this." And he turns around and is like, "Oh, you have some big breasts." And she's like, "Oh, what? Well, I never." And then there's the girl, and she's like, "Yeah, this is what the world's really like." And then the whole, like, everything around turns out that it's actually like a decaying city and no one lives there. And he's like, what? This has all been a dream? And then the girl with the big gun comes up and points it at his head and it's like, this is it. You're going to either wish that she leave and things go back to the way they are, or I'm going to kill you. And he looks at her and is like, I choose option number 3 to join magic school.
What?
Is that the end of the episode?
No.
Oh, Jesus.
This has been like maybe 10 minutes.
What?
So then the one girl who he thought was his cousin's like, all right, well, I'll turn into this deck of cards that hangs around your neck. And then they wind up at magic school. And he's signing up for classes. And the girl with the big breasts is like, I didn't think you'd sign up at school. And he's like, yeah. And I don't know, I think he mentioned her large breasts or something. Anywho, then near the end of the episode, he's like, I guess I'll go take a bath. And so he goes to take a bath, and he goes into the men's bath, and he looks up, and there's this girl who looks just like Rey from Neon Genesis Evangelion, who also kind of looks like his cousin. And he's like, what? And she's just like, what is going on? I am naked. That is normal. And he's like, what? And runs out. And the girl with big boobs is like, you can't be in here. And she's like, I did not know that. I am human. And they put some clothes on her. And then he's like, oh, she looked like my cousin. End of episode.
That's the greatest anime that's ever been made. Ever. They won. They made a show that's the best. What the heck was that?
Oh, I forgot. Trinity Seven. There are 7 real good fighters at the school, and they're all girls. Because girls are good with emotion.
Oh my god.
And now this guy shows up. So yeah.
I want to watch it so bad, but I know it won't be that good.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be what Patrick just described at all.
Oh, it's exactly what I described.
Yeah, but not in the way that I wanted to turn out.
I like the ultimatum was the best because they never mentioned anything about magic school. The choices were leave the world, die, and he chose, I choose option 3, go to magic school. It's a natural choice when you're in an anime.
I mean, I was just like, what's going on? Is someone pulling one over on me? What's going on? It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. Oh, it made more sense than the scene with the airplane pilots and such, but that happened in the very first anime. But oh man, it was madness. It was one of the craziest things I'd ever seen. Oh, also, in most magic schools, I've mentioned they have theater style seats.
Yeah.
This one they had like flat normal seating. Oh. That was pretty wild. That was probably the craziest part of the whole episode.
It's not a real magic school.
What about fancy uniforms that would never be useful as real school uniforms?
They all seem to wear different clothes. Some of them are like a black bikini, and I'm like, oh, is that school regulation? I mean, all right.
Oh my god.
Why is the sun black and covered in black goo?
It always was.
What are you talking about? It's always been like that. Why are you coming on to me really strong when like a couple hours ago you weren't? And it turns out that his cousin, he remembers it. She like died in some explosion or something, and she looked at him and was like, "Don't forget." And then he forgot about her. But then he remembered. So
wait a minute. Okay, yeah, back to the main.
What main plot point? What main point? It was gibberish. It made no sense.
So did he slip into another dimension, or does it ever explain that at all? Exactly why there was a doppelganger and he went to magic school?
I think the doppelganger is magic-y and does magic. And he, like, wished for a whole city to be like it was when he was a kid. And then she made it.
Okay.
Maybe. Like I said, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But it was there. I mean, you gotta admit that. It exists.
You do have to admit that.
I almost want to, like, follow up on this later. Like, have you watched another episode and report back?
That's true.
Well, anywho, either you lads have something you want to add, or you want to hit the dusty trail?
I don't know if it's possible to top that. It might be best to quit while we're ahead.
Uh-huh. That's what the Exxon Valdez should have done, you know? Quit while it was ahead.
They really should have. I don't know what they're going to do about that.
It's a real problem in our society these days.
Yeah. I mean, I heard on the news the other day that, 1989, when it was estimated to be between 40,000 and 120,000 square meters.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
The 54th largest spill in history.
What is old Bush gonna do about this?
I don't know, but I can tell you this. He's going to win re-election.
I don't know, man.
Well, come on. There's no one to challenge him.
Not yet.
You think some old slick Willie's going to show up and take the prize?
I don't know. Maybe somebody from like Kentucky or possibly Arkansas.
Just someone. All right. Well, we'll see. I'll put a little money on it, and we'll see who wins. Well, lads, I think it's getting late. I've got school in the morning. The pumpkin dance is coming up soon, so we got to get ready for that.
I know. I gotta get a date and everything.
Yeah, I think my mom's knocking on the door wanting me to go teach her how to set the VCR back because daylight savings time just happened.
Yeah. Maybe you could watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You could probably watch that. All right, lads. Well, I'll see you. All right?
All right, I'll be sure not to lose this episode like I've lost other ones. Don't worry, I'll find them someday, and I definitely won't lose this one. I'll put it right up.
Make sure you put them on tape because then we can dig them out later.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Magnetic tape.
That's the future.